The Joker 2 is a failure at the box office and was destroyed by both critics and audience, and in today's video we're going to talk about what happened behind the scenes to cause this colossal failure. We officially have both Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan and John Stewart casted for the DCU, but it comes with a controversy. And it's almost been 2 years since James Gunn and Peter Safran were brought in to run the DCU, so let's take a look at what they've done so far and give them a letter grade. But first, welcome back to the channel where once a week I come to you all giving you some of the latest DCU news, and there's a lot to discuss in today's video. But again, thank you for clicking on this video. If you like this type of content, hit that like button, share your thoughts about the topics that we're talking about today, and also consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel. With all that being said, let's talk about the Joker 2 being an absolute disaster. So at the time of this recording, as you all can see on the screen now, the film has grossed domestically over $43 million at the box office, $77 million internationally, and as of right now on Friday, it has grossed over $120 million worldwide. And if you take a look at the Rotten Tomato scores, we have a 33% from the critics and a 31% from the audience. So yeah, things are not looking good for Joker 2. And I mean, you just think about 5 years ago, 2019, it was the highest grossing rated R film of all time before it was surpassed by Deadpool and Wolverine. We had it being nominated for Best Picture, obviously didn't win, but it did win Joaquin Phoenix's first Oscar as far as Best Actor, Best Score. I mean, it was a critical hit. The audiences liked it. I mean, it came with some controversy, but I mean, it was a big hit. So what happened exactly? So let's take a look at this article, or this kind of breakdown, what I found online as far as some of the things that happened behind the scenes before I kind of share my thoughts about what happened with this movie. So let's take a look at this breakdown brought to us by Culture Crave, and it gives us a list of 14 items that was mentioned in the last few days regarding the Joker behind the scenes. So number one thing they mentioned is the idea came from Joaquin Phoenix in a dream, which has been debunked since this breakdown came out, because there was a clip of him talking about the dream, but they didn't end up following through with his dream. Was
inspired the movie. The dream was just I had this dream that I was performing as Joker, doing songs, and I just called Todd because I thought there might be something there, and there wasn't. Thank you.
Number two was that it was going to be put on a Broadway show before committing it to a film. Again, I think that kind of goes with number one, that whole dream thing was not going to happen. But moving on to number three, Todd Phillips was given free reign by Warner Brothers, wanted him to do his thing when it comes to making this film, and there was no test screenings. For a $200 million film to not have test screenings, I mean, that's a vote of confidence for most cases, but this definitely is test screenings if you ask me. But the whole idea of Warner Brothers giving Todd Phillips the free reign to do his thing. Listen, obviously hindsight's 2020. This man brought in a $1 billion film 5 years ago. He also brought in a ton of money with Warner Brothers with previous projects like the Hangover franchise. So I can understand the confidence of the previous regime saying, listen, man, do your thing. We didn't interfere you with the first Joker. We're not going to do that with the second one. So I understand kind of the confidence, but obviously that did not work out. Moving on to number four, it has Lady Gaga signed on before the script was finished. And this is one of those cases where I believe Lady Gaga, obviously iconic singer in her own right, but she's still kind of coming up as an actress. So she wants to work on projects that challenge her, that is exciting to her. So I could see someone in her position, even though, again, she's a megastar, I want to work on things that are exciting, things that challenge me, things that can speak to my sensibilities, with it being a musical. I would assume, even though the script wasn't written, that the musical element was probably something that sold her on that. But normally, you don't have a lot of stars signing on to projects without them having some type of level of understanding what the film can be, even without the script being done. But more importantly, they probably want to work with the people involved, Joaquin Phoenix, Todd Phillips, so on and so forth. And plus, she might have saw this as an opportunity for her career. Number five, new DC boss James Gunn had zero involvement, gave notes, but Todd Phillips did not use them. That's a big one. That to me kind of goes into number three, right? Of Warner Brothers, which James Gunn has already came out and said this is not a DC Studios film. So like, why would Todd Phillips listen to someone that's not directly above him, right? As far as like James Gunn isn't writing this, giving him the check to make the movie. The movie was in production before James Gunn and Peter Safran came into the door. So I can understand why Todd Phillips would be like, thank you, no thank you, because you're not my direct boss. So I kind of understand that, but I would assume that James Gunn notes probably would have made the film a little bit better or had a different direction than some of the things that played out. But let's move on. Number 6, film had a huge budget. We all know $200 million, including $20 million salary for Joaquin Phoenix and then $12 million for Lady Gaga. And it doesn't include this, but I'm pretty sure that Todd Phillips had a big payday to come back as a director slash co-writer in this film. And also, producer fees, all that different stuff. So I said in my review, the film looks gorgeous. It was shot well. It's just a beautifully well put together movie, visually speaking. But to have, $32 million towards your talent, whatever Todd Phillips' salary was, we're looking at maybe $50 to $60 million towards the talent of the film. So again, the whole budget thing is ridiculous because obviously the movie's not making money. But again, just thinking about, we're going to give you $200 million for you can give us another $1 billion like you did before. So again, I'm not making an excuse for the studio, but I can understand why they felt confident giving them that amount of money to make this movie. So next we have the musical aspect was largely downplayed in marketing, with the director saying that it wasn't a musical at first. Now, listen, regardless if you love or hate the film, this is a musical. Like I don't know, some people calling it, it's a musical. They're singing, they're dancing. There's 10 plus songs. There's full on sequences of singing and dancing. It is a musical. I don't think that necessarily hurt the marketing that they weren't saying it's a musical, because I think that a lot of people that had their ears on the ground knew that it was a musical. So, I don't think that had a huge play into it, but I do think musicals are being downplayed across the board in just Hollywood. I think of last year's Wonka, barely advertised it as a musical. Even the new Wicked, I know Wicked's starting to show the song and dance numbers, but even that first trailer didn't really indicate that it was a musical. So it's a weird spot right now with musicals in Hollywood. But moving on to number 8, it says Christopher Nolan reportedly changed the ending of the first movie because it ended with Joaquin's Joker carving a smile on his face. There was no resistance in the sequel because Christopher Nolan obviously isn't, working with Warner Brothers. That's interesting. That is an interesting little bit of details there that Christopher Nolan said, no, you are not going to be doing that in the film. Just kind of shows the weight that Christopher Nolan had with Warner Brothers, that he's not a producer of the first Joker. So that's very interesting. And Todd Phillips said, he ain't here no more, so let's go ahead and do what I want to do in the first one. That's very interesting. Again, I guess I should have said, well, they didn't really spoil anything, but if you've seen the Joker 2, you know that he did bring that idea back into the film, but it wasn't for Joaquin, it's for another character. And you can see my full spoiler review to get more insight on that. Number 9, it says Todd Phillips was on a secluded ranch during that opening weekend. Smart move on his part. Let's move on. Number 10, the film was panned by, we just talked about that, 33%, 31% from the audience on Rotten Tomatoes. It talks about, now this is huge, number 11, the cinema score was a D. Lowest ever for a comic book film.
Damn. I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're not even talking about Madam Web. We're not even talking about some of the more recent blockbuster failures, Shazam 2, The Flash. This more recent memory, there's been some clankers, some stinkers in the realm of the comic book movies. A lot of the X-Men movies, Wolverine Origins. I mean, the list goes on, but we're talking about Catwoman, lower scored than I don't even know if they had cinema scores back then, but like Catwoman, Howard the Duck, like that is insane. A D cinema score amongst audiences. That is bonkers to me. Moving on, we have number 12, domestically, that it opened to $37.8 million, which is lower than a comic book film such as The Marvels and Morbius. Yeah, that's not a good company to be in. Then last but not least, we have our final 2, that it needed to make $450 million globally to break even, or else it's going to lose the studio $150 million. And then the last one here, Warner Bros. Discovery is already over $40 billion in debt. So the question I beg to you all, or pose to you all, is what happened, man? Again, I kind of gave you all my insight on some of these things, like the Todd Phillips having more control over the film. I understand it from a studio perspective. You brought us $1 billion. Do it again. We're going to leave you alone and let you do your thing. But there should have been, we always talk about with comic book movies and movies in general, the whole idea of like studio interference being something negative for filmmaking, which I think some of the headlines and stories and articles kind of make it seem more bad than what it is, but more times than not, it takes a committee to make some of these more well-known big blockbuster films that we all love. And, I think that there should have been some studio interference. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, like I mentioned earlier, but I think studio notes, restrictions, not necessarily oversight, people being on set every day telling him what to do, but there should have been more kind of confinement to what Todd Phillips was able to do with this film, even though he did gross them so much profit 5 years ago, and his history with Warner Brothers speaks for itself. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, man, this was, and I talked about it in a review, I think this was a film that was meant to, from Todd Phillips, which I think was a mistake, but it was a very combative film. Like, he really wanted to kind of look at the fans from the first film and interact with them in a negative light, and how he feels about superhero movies and Arthur, and Joker. I just feel like it was just not a good move on Todd Phillips to do all the things that he did with this film, not artistically speaking, but just from, like, again, it felt like it was in spite. It felt like he didn't want to do it, but he was forced to do it because obviously the first one was so successful. But again, I'm one of those people where if your heart's not in it, just don't even do it, no matter what the paycheck might bring you, because obviously, like one of the things said, he went to a ranch to seclude himself because I think he knew that this was going to be a film that was going to press some buttons. Maybe not to the extent that it is now, because it is going to be a box office failure, but yeah, it's unfortunate, but sometimes things like this need to happen for people to snap out, get out of their own egos, get out of their own heads. And maybe this is a wake-up call for a lot of different studios, not to be like, all right, we're never going to do this again. We're never going to let an artist, have their vision out there. But I think there needs to be some notes taken, positively speaking, on things not to do moving forward for not just Warner Brothers, but, Marvel, Star Wars, you name it, any IP. Things need to be looked at, because this is just a colossal failure on so many levels. Like, I can't think of another film that was as successful. Again, this was $1 billion movie 5 years ago, a rated R Joker film that make $1 billion, be the box office hit, be the, award winning type of film, a nominated film, to now this. And like I said, it's 120 million as I'm recording this. Will it even make 250 million by the end of its runtime? Because the word of mouth is not good on this movie. So, man, this is a failure, and I want to know what you all think about it from the box office perspective, the behind the scenes things we just went over, the future of what do you think it's going to make by the end of its run, and will Todd Phillips be in director jail? Will this just be like one of those situations where it's just like it happened, but we're going to see him in a couple years going back to comedy or doing another, big IP? Let me know your thoughts about it all in the comments below. So moving on from the negative news and talking about some positive news, and that is that we have the Green Lanterns cast. We have Kyle Chandler officially announced by James Gunn himself, and then one that I'm really excited about, and that is John Stewart has been cast, and he is going to be played by Aaron Pierre. So as you all can see on the screen now, James Gunn did officially announce that Kyle Chandler will be Hal Jordan again. It was talked about weeks ago. I made a video about it, but it wasn't officially announced. It was, it was headlines for Variety and Deadline, things of that nature. But now James Gunn has said, he is going to be our Hal Jordan. So congratulations to Kyle Chandler. I spoke about that in previous videos. So if you want to get my thoughts about what I think about Kyle Chandler, check out those videos. But moving on to Mr. Aaron Pierre, who I have said in a previous video that I thought that he would be the best fit for the role. I just think physically, I think he's great for the role. I also think he is a great actor. And I'm not, listen, Rebel Ridge put him on the map, and that just came out less than a month ago. And a lot of people think that was how he got the movie. Like, this stuff happens months in advance. So, like, they were probably already in the Aaron Pierre camp way before Rebel Ridge hit Netflix, but it just kind of obviously boosted his stock with popularity amongst, regular audiences. But I'm pretty sure he was on their radar for a while in regards to this role. So I thought this was a great decision to have Aaron Pierre in the role, and I've said it in previous videos. I'm a big fan. I'm not, again, just jumping on the bandwagon like some people have done recently, which is fine. But I've been following this young man's career since seeing him in Barry Jenkins' 2021's TV show, Underground Railroad. Saw him obviously in M. Night Shyamalan's Old. He was in a film called Brother, which is on, I believe it's on Netflix. If you haven't seen Brother and you want to see more of him as an actor, watch that film. Very vulnerable role, but also very, kind of he has that screen presence. It has that type of persona to him that you can just tell he's a star. So check out Brother. He did a film on Amazon last year that was super underrated by the name of Folie. It's Paul Mescal, Saoirse Ronan, and him. I mean, you're looking at three of the best up-and-coming actors, or presently actors that are just making a name for themselves. So check out that. And then, of course, we know him in Rebel Ridge. So been a fan of his for a while. Think he's great for the role. happy to see him in the role, and I'm excited to see him and Kyle Chandler going back and forth and seeing this relationship come to fruition and get this DCU Green Lantern Corps started. So I'm excited for it. But it doesn't come without its controversy. So when Aaron Pierre was announced, if you guys are on social media, there was a lot of positivity surrounding the announcement. He also posted it on his personal account, being, very thankful for the opportunity and excited to get to work. But then there were some people, and this is the way I feel about it, as far as he's not black enough to play John Stewart. If you guys don't know, the creator of John Stewart has recently came out and shared his 2 cents on how he always envisioned John Stewart in his mind as a darker skinned character. And, he had his thoughts on it. There's other people that shared their thoughts on it. And I'm in 2 camps with this scenario as far as dark skin, light skin. And listen, before we get into the topic, colorism is a real thing, especially in Hollywood, and not just in media, but housing, healthcare, businesses, political things. I mean, colorism is a real thing, and there's so many layers and depths and complexities to this conversation. I mean, hell, there's another conversation that could be had about, I know Aaron Pierre isn't from the U.S. He's, I believe he's from Britain or somewhere in England. So there's a whole conversation about people from the UK taking, black actors from the UK playing American icons, from, Fred Hampton was played by Daniel Kaluuya. Even Aaron Pierre played Malcolm X earlier this year. So there's an even conversation about how, Hollywood looks at UK black actors versus, American bred actors. So there's so many layers, so many depths and conversations to be had. But I don't have any pushback. I don't have any complaints about people that have said, and I've seen the comments that I think have explained themselves in an elegant and also intelligent way of describing how they feel kind of disappointed. I've seen people say, listen, shout out to Aaron Pierre, great actor, excited to see him in a role, but I do wish that they would have casted a darker skinned actor. Whenever I saw that, I completely understand it. I'm not going to push back on it. I've seen some people say how their parents are military men. They've always liked John Stewart because he looked like them. And there's so many things. Representation is a big thing. It's a real thing. It needs to be talked about more. And I don't have any malice or disagreement or pushback with people that feel that way in that camp. My issue with the conversation is he dark enough, light-skinned, he's too light, is the comments that are coming at Aaron Pierre saying that he shouldn't look at the role. He should, rescind the offer. He shouldn't take it as a career opportunity. And also, I just look at it at the other side of colorism as far as everyone has their story. Everyone has their path to where they are now, right? I mean, the whole "you're not black enough" conversation is probably something he's faced growing up, gumming up in the Hollywood system or getting his name out there. Him maybe missing out on opportunities because he is light-skinned, right? I mean, think about Rebel Ridge. John Boyega was going to play the character. Obviously, he dropped out, and then Aaron Pierre came in. So naturally, different looking actor, obviously with different acting sensibilities. So I think the idea of how people are saying John Stewart isn't black enough, who they cast in the role, but then the idea of well, how does that make someone feel, right? As far as Aaron Pierre, by all accounts, I don't know him. I think he's a good dude. I think he definitely deserves this opportunity. But I just look at it, like I said, when people are like, "You're not black enough, you should be dark," like that. Just to me, that's where I push back, right? It's like, don't be mad at him. This is a much larger conversation that needs to be looked at from a Hollywood perspective to make that change. But yeah, I'm happy with the decision. And like I said, I understand the pushback from the more understandable people out there that's, sharing their thoughts on the real issue of colorism. And it's not just for blacks, African Americans in Hollywood. It goes for, Latinos. It goes for, men and women across the landscape of Hollywood. So it isn't just a black thing. So it's an issue that needs to be discussed and needs to have some type of resolution because it is not just a today thing. It's been going on for decades in Hollywood. And I am hopeful that this is just a conversation piece as far as the negativity for Aaron Pierre just for the next few days. And then hopefully when you see him in the costume, you see him in the trailer, you see him in the show, we can forget about this conversation and just appreciate the actor for who he is. And I'm always someone that says that hopefully, when it comes to these decisions, whether it's Kyle Chandler or whether it's Aaron Pierre, they pick the best person for the job, right? We always talk about the whole Hollywood agenda, checking off a list, this, that, and the third. But I'm a person that believes in when it's called upon, if it's not detrimental to the character, like in a conversation like this, having the right actor for the role, best actor for the role. And I think that's the case in this particular scenario. So congratulations, Kyle Chandler. Congratulations, Aaron Pierre. I'm very excited to see you guys play the respective roles of Hal Jordan and John Stewart. And I'm excited. I'm super excited for this to come to HBO. By the way things are looking, they're going to probably get cameras rolling early next year, and we might get this show late next year, 2025, or, obviously 2026 after the Superman film, and maybe before even Supergirl. So let me know your thoughts about, again, Kyle Chandler, Aaron Pierre, respectfully having the conversation about, the light skin, dark skin, colorism within the Hollywood landscape, but as it pertains to this particular role. And let me know when you all think that we might see this on HBO. Will it be the end of 2025? Will it be 2026? Let's have some respectful conversations about these topics in the comments below. And last but not least, I just wanted to have a fun conversation about just like a report card for James Gunn and Peter Safran. And it will be 2 years that they were announced to be the heads of the DC studios. And taking a look at this, so far, this is our Justice League, right? Obviously, there's Kumail Nanjiani, who hasn't been officially announced as Booster Gold. There's been a lot of rumors around him, but he's not official. But everyone else in this picture has been confirmed to be reprising their roles or playing these characters for the first time. And I like these group of actors. I think this is a great looking Justice League, but taking it and looking at it from just, like I said, a report card and just how I feel about the DCU, how things have been handled up until this point. So taking a look at James Gunn's and Peter Safran's slate, Chapter 1 of Gods and Monsters, and looking at things that have already been shot, that's going in production, and then going on from there. So we know, obviously, Superman has already been shot. It's coming out next year, and apparently there's a trailer that might be dropping later this year. Very excited for that. We have The Brave and the Bold, the Batman film. We're going to be focusing on the Bat family, Damian and Bruce Wayne, and going into all that. And the only thing we know about it so far is that Andy Muschietti is still slated to be directing that film. There's been some rumors that things may change, but we'll see. Moving on from there, we have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. We got Millie Alcock as Supergirl. We got Matthias as the supervillain. We have Greg Gillespie as the director. Very excited for that film coming out in 2026. The Authority. We don't know much about who's going to be writing, directing this film. A rumor has it that James Gunn might be directing this himself, writing this film, because this is a passion project of his. So that might be where they're going with that. But we do know that there will be members of the Authority in Superman. So they're going to plant the seeds, and obviously want to get their film later on. Swamp Thing hasn't had much of emotion or anything going on besides James Mangold is rumored to be the director. Nothing's been confirmed quite yet, but that's still kind of in limbo and still kind of in the works and pre-production, I would assume. Creature Commandos coming out this December. I'm going to be honest, my hype level is kind of like mid on that one. We'll see. I hopefully can be surprised by that. I will be watching, obviously, but because obviously it's going to have a lot of ties to DCU. We have Rick Flag Sr. is going to be in it. We're going to have a lot of the, some, maybe Waller's, she's already announced in it. So there's going to be some ties to DCU. Then it's officially the first DCU project. So again, I'm not super excited, but I'm very intrigued by Creature Commandos. Next, we have the Waller series. We know Viola Davis will be coming back as Waller, but there hasn't been a lot of traction on that. We have Lanterns. We know that show is full ongoing. We just talked about who's going to be playing the Lanterns. They have their writers team. They have their showrunners. So that show is already ready to go and shaping up to be something very special in my eyes. Booster Gold was announced as a TV show. There hasn't been much traction. Obviously, Kumail Nanjiani has been rumored to play the role, but nothing's been confirmed. And then Paradise Lost, which is the Wonder Woman-centric show, hasn't been any movement on that at all as far as who's going to be Wonder Woman. Like, where is it taking place in the timeline? Probably a prequel from what I remember. And James Gunn kind of pitched it as like a Game of Thrones and Themyscira, which sounds awesome. So, but no traction. But as far as things that were announced, again, Superman's already ready to go. Supergirl is ready to go. We have the Creature Commandos coming out in a couple months, and then we have Lanterns shooting next year. So out of those, 10 projects, 4 of them are greenlit, 4 of them are ready to go, and then the rest are kind of, like I said, either in their pre-production, still hiring directors and writers and still kind of figuring things out. And then outside of that, other things has been announced since then. They've said that they're doing a Teen Titans film, live action. They have a writer for it, but obviously there's no director, there's no casting of it, but that's something that wasn't announced during the Gods and Monsters slate. And then also, just about a week and a half ago, I made a video about that, the Bane and Deathstroke film. People are speculating it might be a Secret Six film. Those are 2 things that were announced since then. And then also last week, we have the dynamic duo animated film with the collaboration of DC Animations and Swaybox, which will be doing a Robin prequel focusing on Jason Todd, and we have Dick Grayson as, who becomes Nightwing and Red Hood. So those are things that's been also announced since the slate. And listen, man, as far as what James Gunn has done so far and Peter Safran, I'm excited. Again, we haven't seen anything like officially, right? They obviously took on Shazam 2, took on Black Adam, took on, Flash and Aquaman 2, and then most recently the Joker 2, which again wasn't a DC Studios film, but a lot of people think it is. But nonetheless, they had to take those on. It is now, that chapter is done. Now we can fully look ahead at the DC. And since that announcement, he again announced the slate for the next 5 to 10 years, which is something that we've had slates before in the DC. If you've been a DC fan for the last 10 plus years like I have, we have seen slates. And 9 times out of 10, we only get like 3 or 4 projects, if that, from the slates that were announced years ago. We have a Superman film shot. It's coming out next year. We're going to get a trailer by the end of this year. He's also currently they're shooting Peacemaker season 2. There's been behind the scenes. They've already shot half the season. It's looking good. It's looking great. I'm excited for Peacemaker because season 1 was fantastic. Again, we have Creature Commandos already shot, coming out in December. Again, I talked about it. Not super excited, but very intrigued by it. They've casted key roles. Again, Superman, most of the Justice League, Green Lanterns, Hawk Girl. We have Mr. Terrific. We have so many things to look forward to in the casting. I'm looking at these actors. I'm looking at them in the costumes, or at least some of them in the costumes. They're looking great. And then they have finished scripts for Lantern, Supergirl, director, the star. Everything's casted. So I haven't been this happy for DC in such a long time. And again, it's hard to give them like a confident grade because we haven't seen any of these projects quite yet. But from what I have loved about James Gunn as a creative, as a director, he hasn't missed. Rather how you feel about him as a, someone on social media, how he's handled the new position. I actually like that he's debunking things and interacting with his fans, but that's another conversation for another day. But I'm going to give the DCU Peter Safran, who, by the way, I don't think Peter Safran gets enough credit. Because obviously James Gunn's the face. He's the one out there. He's the one tweeting. He's the one sharing things. And he made the video. He's the face of the DCU, right? But Peter Safran, it takes a pretty unique individual to allow someone to kind of take all the credit, good or bad, and you do the things behind the scenes. You're talking to the producers. You're getting to the conversations with the casting process, with the production process, with budgets and all that. And that's what Peter Safran was brought into. And that's why I love this dynamic between Peter and James. And no shot at Marvel, because I love Marvel, but to just think that James Gunn, was able to look at what the highs and lows of what Kevin Feige and the various different producers have done over the 13 plus years or 15 years now with the MCU, and taking, again, the good and the bad and trying to make it better and have a seamless type of experience. Because, again, a lot of people forget, a lot of the times with the MCU, they were just kind of like throwing stuff at the wall, and luckily it stuck. And obviously now they're kind of looking at the ramifications of how things kind of play out when you have to kind of rebuild. So I'm going to give Peter Safran, who, again, shout out, he's the Batman of the situation. If James Gunn's his Superman, then Peter's his Batman. He's doing things behind the scenes and doing things in the shadows, which would work out for the company. But I'm going to give them a solid, B. I'm going to give them a B+, almost an A-. And I'm not giving them an A quite yet, because there are, like I said, the Swamp Things, the Brave and the Bold, the Batman of it all, the Wonder Woman of it all. That, to me, seems like we should be maybe casting them, even though I know they're not going to be coming out in the next few years. But I feel like that, foundationally speaking, to have the Trinity set, to me, should be something a little bit more focused on versus, and I'm looking forward to these projects. But I'm thinking of, Bane, Deathstroke, and Dynamic Duo. Like, where's Wonder Woman? Where's Batman? But putting that aside, I'm giving them a B+, man. I'm super excited for the plan that they seem to have, that they are doing things that I feel comfortable with, which is, don't announce things without writers, directors, actors, script ready to go. Obviously, things can change when it comes to script, but having a plan in place. That's something we never have had in the DC, universe, DCEU. So I'm giving them a B+ as far as just their grade so far. And I'm really, really excited. Like, again, I'm doing this once a week now because I'm a lifelong DC fan. And I feel like this is the time to be excited for DC. And I know everyone's not on board with the plans, and there's people that are still upset about the Henry Cavills, who I'm still upset about, but I'm happy for David Cornsweet and all the things that are coming with the franchise. So B+ for me, but let me know in the comments, what do you feel about the report card, the announcements, the things that have been put in place by James Gunn and Peter Safran, and which of those projects are you most excited for? Will all these projects come out? Let me know if you guys think Swamp Thing and, some of those other Booster Golds of the world, like, do you think those will see the day of light? And what other, things will you want to see announced sooner rather than later? Let's talk about it in the comments. So with that being said, that's our last topic of the day. Let me know your thoughts about the Joker 2, about the casting in Green Lantern, about the report card so far of James Gunn and Peter Safran. Let me know your thoughts on all that. Thank you all for making it to this point of the video. Again, when there is big news, I will be talking about it every Saturday. Thank you all that have been watching it so far. Thank you all for the support. I have a lot of, for my movie fans out there outside the DCU, a lot of reviews out, a lot of reviews coming out. We're getting ready for the big time of the year with Oscar award-winning type of film. So a lot of stuff coming to you all, a lot of reviews, coverage on the Penguin. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification. That way you don't miss out on any of that content. You all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next video.